Let's start with the headline, and that is Donald Trump can't escape sentencing in the New York criminal case where he was convicted on 34 separate felony counts. You go to the conclusion of an 18-page order by Justice Juan Merchan, and it says that defendant Donald Trump is ordered to appear for his sentencing following conviction on January 10th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning. It goes on to say while Trump may appear at a sentencing in person or virtually, he must give an indication which one he will choose to do by January 5th, 2025. Justice Merchan goes through all of Trump's reasoning why there should not be a sentencing, some of which you and I have rehashed from other motions. Trump talking about immunity, Trump talking about supremacy clause, Trump doing something called requesting that the case be dismissed in the interest of justice using Clayton factors, which is just an analysis under New York law for dismissing a criminal case in the interest of justice, meaning there's some other equitable reason in the law basically to get rid of a criminal conviction. And Trump's saying, I guess because I'm the president that you should get rid of it. So Merchan goes through all of that reasoning, says, no, you have to be sentenced. However, and it's a big however, Justice Merchan says, even though I'm still keeping an open mind as I must at sentencing what will happen because of the unusual circumstances here, I want to let the parties what I'm inclined to do. And Merchan talks about a concept that's unique. It's called an unconditional discharge. And it kind of is what it says. I did a hot take with Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, the former number 2 at the district attorney's office. And she goes, if that basically is granted, it basically means, and I'll get your take, Harry, if it's similar. Yes, you are convicted. Yes, you are a felon. But in terms of the conditions of release, meaning is there your requirements? You can do this. You can't do that. You got to pay this fine. You got to do this. Unconditional means unconditioned. No conditions on the discharge. It's just, boom, you get the scarlet letter. You're a convicted felon, and it is what it is. So, Harry, is that your understanding of an unconditional discharge? Were you surprised with this ruling? Take it in any order, sir.
Okay, let me start with my understanding. Yeah, that's exactly right, as Karen says. In the law in New York, there's such a thing as a conditional discharge. You let the person go with no jail, but you impose certain conditions. That would be much more normal. But then you have the little provision that says you can do an unconditional as well if you find it's in the interest of justice. And it's just as you say, even less than a slap on the wrist. However, I think it's a very adroit opinion and basically separates out his personal fate with the fate for history and society that he get. I think you put it just right, Ben, with the scarlet letter. He gets the scarlet letter. That's making him apoplectic. I'll get back to that in a moment. But that's what really matters here. It's been a foregone conclusion for a while. He's not going to go to jail. And it seemed very remote that, on the other end of his presidency, maybe this will come back at him. That was not happening. And Merchan realized that. And yet Trump had really gone much farther and basically tried to use his electoral victory as some kind of weird judgment or legal reason to wipe out the whole thing and make it as if he was never convicted. And Merchan is basically saying, you were convicted, pal. And he goes through all the reasons not to just wipe the case from the pages of history, which he said would do immeasurable damage to the rule of law. So he really sticks up for accountability, sticks up for rule of law, and says our president is a 34-time over felon. That's the most important thing here. It's been the most important since November 5th. And back to Trump. He was fit to be tied. He's going to do everything he can to appeal it. But I'm not sure he's got much of at least much of a basis for getting a stay, for keeping this from happening on the 10th. Because look, if a court down the line disagrees with Merchan on the immunity, they can both reverse the sentence here being basically nothing. But I don't see his strong argument for saying, as the lawyers put it, he'll have irreparable injury just for standing and being sentenced on the 10th. Now, there's an interesting dynamic here because Mayor Chan says, I mean, he's basically all the personal stuff with Trump, he's letting him walk, including not even having to show up. Now, to Trump, however, remember, he took, and I was at the trial, he made it a media circus and held these rallies and said all this stuff. I think you're going to see him try very hard to get a stay. And Mayor Chen's been careful to say you can still appeal, but that won't be enough for him. It will drive him batty if Mayor Chen is actually able to look at him come the 10th. And you can expect, by the way, even though he lets him off with nothing, he is going to give him a stern talking to, the way judges do to defendants. You're familiar with this, Ben. He's going to really shame him for the legal violations, and then say, but he can walk. If all that happens, and that's what Trump doesn't want to have happen. And if he's unable to get a stay on it, maybe he even shows up and tries to do a whole rally as he's done in the trial. But let me just summarize and say I really like this opinion because that's been, to me, the most important thing. It's outrageous for Trump to try to leverage the incredible, astonishing happenstance of winning the election to somehow even more make the crimes go away. If he's going to be president, he should at least be Mr. Felon 34 times over president. And that's exactly Mayor Chan's notion as well. So I think it's a strong opinion, but given how narrow, how almost absent are the practical consequences, I think it's going to be the strongest possible case for affirmance when it goes up, and he'll try to both stay it, and if he can't stay it, then try to get it reversed on the merits, but after he becomes president.
As a reminder for those who have followed our coverage, we predicted that this was likely what he was going to do. Remember, we set out the options. One of the options was the Alabama rule, where you basically sentence a dead person. They call it the Alabama rule.
And Merton rejected expressly, right?
Yeah, you literally proclaim a sentence. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years, but you are dead to me. So I guess you can't serve a dead person.
You are dead.
And Merchan's like, look, he's not dead. So if I did that, I'd probably get overturned. So I can't do that here. The other is delay everything, push it to 2029. And Merchan, I think, also recognized that the practical ability to do that, I think he believed, would probably make the overall case vulnerable to appeal or second guessing, or even the idea that a state court was interfering in a federal matter when Trump assumes the office. And so he goes, I hear you, DA, but that doesn't seem to be practical. So the kind of merger of those concepts, I guess, is what he kind of decided on, like the Alabama rule, but without proclaiming an amount of years. So it's basically, you're a bad boy, you're a felon, this is real, you did it, you shall forever be tainted by it, but I hereby say there is no consequence, and then there's nothing to appeal vis-a-vis a argument of a state interfering with federal or anything like that. So we may not like it, but I think strategically he wants this verdict to be a marker in history that this is who this guy is. And he, I think, thought if he did any of the other moves, like a what's that board, Jenga or whatever it is, where it would be a piece where the whole thing could collapse. Final word.
Yeah, no, so look, I really think that's true. And what he basically did, I like it fine, because he took all the practical stuff and put it off the table, because he just didn't. That's really not what matters now. And what matters now is really what you say, it's history's account. And Trump had tried, and you'll see him. He's gonna take this in his Trumpian fashion. He is not going to take this as a victory, and I don't think it is a victory. It's a very basically no sentence, but that's really not the what's important now. And what I think Mayor Chun did was he recognized all these exceptional circumstances that Trump has been leading with. I'm now the president-elect, et cetera. But he cabined them just to what sentence he's going to give them. You're right. It's all special. You can't be in jail 4 years from now. And notice, by the way, he crafted a solution that was different, in some ways more ingenious than what the DA had, the menu of 3 options that they had served up. So Mayor Chun says, I understand all this special stuff, therefore unconditional discharge, but everything else, you're guilty, you did these things, a jury of 12 found you're guilty, the rule of law requires that to be emphasized, and that will, if this stands, and it's the strongest possible footing for it, that's going to make this, the end, the second paragraph of a Trump obituary, and the part of any American history textbook. He is president felon 34 times over. That's who he is.
Harry Littman, Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds podcast, Talking Feds Substack. Everybody subscribe to the Talking Feds trilogy of properties, the YouTube, Substack, and the podcast. Again, it's Talking Feds. Search it. You'll love it. It's where I get my legal news from. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.